Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Partnerships for Profit. I'm your host, Ana Del Rio, and this week we're joined by William McLaughlin, Director of Marketing at McNees Wallace Nurick. With a decade of legal marketing experience spanning Southeast Asia and the U.S., William brings a global perspective on law firm growth, brand strategy, and business development. Thank you so much for being on the show today, William. How you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. Well, why don't you start off by telling everybody, where you're coming from, like what your background is, like in general, and how you got your start.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I went through university and was working in the capital in Pennsylvania. And then I decided to move to Southeast Asia during the whole financial crisis in 2009. So I spent 1 year, traveling around Southeast Asia. 1 year turned into 2, which turned into 5 and 10 and 15. And then, so I spent the last 15 years working in the legal industry in Southeast Asia, mainly in Bangkok, Thailand.
Very cool. So you spent a decade building legal marketing strategies in Southeast Asia. What's one lesson from that experience that most U.S. firms never think about?
Well, I'm not sure that it's something that U.S. firms don't think about. It's just a reality, right? So in Southeast Asia, I learned early on that the law firm is rarely like the main character, right? So you're just one player in a large ecosystem of banks and accountants and regulators and trade agencies, local partners. So I think the firms that grow are the ones that kind of see themselves as the connectors, not just a legal advisor. In Southeast Asia, there's lots of small countries, right? So clients who come in, let's say like a market entry matter for an international client, let's say a German manufacturer wants to come into Thailand or Vietnam or Cambodia, they need to know what would make sense. So you have to help them understand the regulatory landscape, introduce them to banks and tax advisors and local partners, and even go so far as to help on the practical side of things, like which trade shows should you attend or who to meet at a chamber event. So I think that in the marketing and business development departments, we have to do a big mapping of the whole ecosystem, not just in your country, but across all of the region. And you have to really invest in those relationships with non-legal partners. I mean, it all comes down to relationships, right?
Absolutely.
And then from the practical side, you have to create content and events that speak to the whole journey of entering the market to exiting a market, and not just writing a legal contract or, reviewing a handbook or something like that. So looking at the US, I think a lot of law firms still market as if the client is buying a memo or buying a contract. Whereas in Asia, if you only sell the memo, you're going to lose. So I think the lesson is, you have to build the ecosystem. You have to know the banks, know the consultants. And when you help the client connect all of those dots, you kind of stop being just a law firm and you kind of really become that first call for the clients.
That's great. And as you know, by the title of our podcast, Partnerships for Profit, we rely heavily on like that relationship building, that partnership. And it seems that that's your methodology as well. So that's great. And an alignment. I love that. So tell me, when you transitioned back to the US, what was the biggest reverse culture shock in like law firm marketing operations?
Oh, geez. I think you know what I'm going to say. So I mentioned I grew up here in the US. So I was, grew up listening to commercials like, injured on the job, call 1-800-888, So I knew that was a thing here, but I just kind of just went back in my brain, and then I moved to Asia and kind of forgot about that. So I'd say the biggest culture shock coming back here is realizing how loud and competitive the US legal marketing is.
Yes.
Right. In Southeast Asia, the rules around legal marketing are very conservative, and the local bar associations limit what you can do. Some jurisdictions, you're not allowed to put your logo out on the front of the building. It can only just be like text. So
Wow.
here felt like the wild, wild west. Highways, on buses. I was just in Pittsburgh, and I drove straight into Pittsburgh, and the first thing I saw was like person on a bus, right? It's like, oh my goodness, right? Aggressive digital ads and sponsorships in all the places. So the volumes really turned way up. So contrasting that to where I came from, relationships are the key to everything. So you really had to win on the substantive relationships, the responsiveness, and that referral network, because you couldn't market loudly even if you wanted to.
No.
And I think here, the danger is that law firms can, how can I say this? They can get distracted by volume, right? Trying to be the loudest, but not focusing on the clarity and offering solutions for clients.
That is an interesting perspective. I'm curious though, like how you actually transition, like in your mind, because you and I both know we had a talk, before we jumped on, and just how different it is culturally, even from, just a consumer standpoint, I guess you would say. But how do you focus after being in such a peaceful, it seems, like just slower pace Asia versus loud US?
Well, with 24 hours in the day, even if there were 48 hours, you couldn't do all the things. So you really have to, I take a page from the Asia playbook, is like, let's look at the client. Let's focus on the client. Everything is about the client. What solutions, what personas are we trying to capture? And just let that be the guiding principle. Like, you could do all the things, right? Marketing, because we have all the tools in the US available.
Yes,
so it's like, well, do I need to use all of these, or do I focus and really niche down?
Yes. Here we have so much at our fingertips, so many resources that I would imagine that it could become overwhelming, but simplifying it, focusing is definitely the way to go there. So tell me a story. I want to know a story about somebody that you've helped, whether it be here, over there, and like that outcome. How did they transition? And
in the US or here?
Either. What's your best story? Everybody has a story that sticks in their mind. It reminds them why they do what they do, or that amazing like transition story, just somebody that you've helped.
Well, I don't know if it's someone that I've helped directly, but I don't know if your audience has ever worked in a law firm or kind of knows what a law firm does, or like a corporate law firm. So I work in a corporate law firm. Right? We're not a personal injury law firm where we help people like directly. We help companies. But there are several instances where, you prepare that proposal, the client comes in the door, and you see all of the work that goes into building a highway, for example, right? And connecting those communities. So just being in that process, seeing it from start to finish, really does put gives that intrinsic value that some people might not see deliberately, from a law firm. Like, what is a law firm doing to help society? Well, everything, right? From that corner shop that's going up on the corner, to that road, to that wastewater sewage treatment regulations, to the municipalities, helping schools, right, find funding. So there's just a multitude of things. And one of the great things about working in a law firm is every day is quite different. And you get to work with a big range of clients. So yeah.
All right. So do you have a story though? Like, as far as, I know that you said not somebody that you've helped like directly, but that touching story.
A touching story. We are a corporate law firm at the end of the
That's
day.
okay. But you guys are human, right?
Yes, no, we are human.
Mhm.
I was helping, and this wasn't here. This was back in Southeast Asia, but I was helping an attorney with a very difficult client, right?
Mhm.
And I was coaching that attorney on how to respond to the client, to manage those demands.
Mhm.
And we ended up finding a way to, come around the issue and
Mhm.
deliver the client what they needed. And that actually helped the community. So I don't want to give specifics, but, just little things like that really, really stand out in my mind.
That's great. Well, many firms struggle to align leadership, marketing, and business development. What's a moment when you saw that alignment finally click?
I'd say that for me, things kind of clicked or changed. I'd
Mhm.
say like my glasses came off and I put a new pair of glasses on when I moved from the traditional law firm model
Mhm.
to a structure like KPMG Law, like a big four advisory firm.
Mhm.
So most firms in Southeast Asia today and in North America and Europe are still very like practice centered, right? They're
Mhm.
organized by the tax group, by the IP group, by the M&A group. Everything revolves around all of the departments, and those silos are built just based on how everything's organized. But in KPMG, the environment really forced a different lens. Everything started with the industry,
Mhm.
right? Not a practice group, not a legal practice group, but the industry and the client personas. And not with what the firm wanted to sell. So
Mhm.
instead of asking, well, which practice group owns this, the question became like, what industry problem are we trying to solve, and who's the buyer inside the company? And that really shifts alignment, because leadership, marketing, business development were all kind of speaking the same language.
Right.
And we weren't pushing like an isolated service onto a client. We were actually developing solutions, right, for manufacturers, for tech companies, for
Mhm.
the energy players, or those foreign investors coming into Thailand or Cambodia or
Mhm.
whatnot. So I'd say the takeaway of that experience, like moving from the traditional law firm into a KPMG style
Mhm.
firm, is that law firms say they're industry focused, but most still organize and behave like practice shops.
Mm.
And the alignment happens when you flip that, right? When the organizing principle is the client and the industries they operate in, the internal politics really just fade away, and strategy then becomes quite obvious.
So you've helped guide major regional integrations like Zico Law and KPMG Law. What's the behind the scenes challenge nobody talks about? Mm.
I'd say the human aspect of it, right? No one really, everyone knows, but no one really talks about how hard it is to manage personal identities and expectations, right? When you're integrating a company across a whole region, multiple countries, you're not just aligning logos or websites, you're aligning countries, cultures, legacy firms. And each jurisdiction kind of has different ideas of what it means to even be a lawyer. So the identity work is far harder than balancing any branding exercise. And inside a regional integration, you spend a lot of time helping people see how they fit into something bigger without feeling erased, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think that work, yeah, that work is slow, it's human, and it's done in these small conversations, not big announcements. So that's that's the thing that no one really prepares you when you're part of a project management operation, like just integrating. So if you're a company bringing on a new company in another state, the human part of that is something that needs to have mindful consideration about.
I think a lot of people forget about that little human aspect. So bringing that back into the fold is very important, I believe, as well. Of the people that you do help, what do you find are big pain points that they're struggling with that you help them with?
In terms of regional integration or just in general?
In general, of what it is that you, in relation to what it is that you actually do.
I think a lot of the people that I help internally within an organization, they work in their lane, and the business development, the marketing teams, the admin team, they have a unique perspective of the whole company, right? So they can see everything that's going on, each practice group, each industry group, and what we can do and what we help them do is really see how they fit within the wider group and make those connections and help them. Oh, this group is doing this and you've done this great work. How about we, share it with them? Or we're writing one article. Let's make it a bit wider. Let's think a bit bigger and bring in a whole bunch of people to collaborate on and make it more useful for the client, right? So I'd say one of my jobs as a director of marketing is really to see that wider picture and help everyone figure out their role in the wider company message.
Oh, great. Okay, so looking ahead, what emerging trend do you believe will separate the firms that grow from the firms that stall out in the next 5 years?
It's a difficult question, Anna. I'd say you just bring it back to the client, right? So clients, we know after talking to them, right, which all companies should, they're under pressure, right, to forecast costs, reduce friction, and move faster, right, in this economy. So I think that law firms are a bit unique in that they sell time, right? Other businesses, they have a product. Our product is our attorneys. Our product is what's inside of the attorneys' heads. And traditionally, that business model is selling time. But if clients want to reduce cost and they want to have that, they want to know what that invoice is going to be, the law firms have to find a way and to address that. So firms that keep selling time every time are going to feel slow and they're going to feel more expensive. So firms that win, I think, are going to be those that find a way to package what they already know into clear client offerings tied to a specific industry problem. So we've seen that in Southeast Asia coming out a lot in subscription style advisory services or industry toolkits built around a common pain point. We see fixed fee packages and sort of this managed services built on volume and process. So I think that future winners won't be firms with the most capabilities, but they'll be the firms with the clearest solution. And I think we've lost Anna.